Hey friend, if your bass drum foot is slow, it's getting tired easily, and you're finding yourself unable to execute driving fast grooves or any kind of groove with quick little 16th doubles, then today's lesson is for you. I know the frustration of feeling like my hands are fine, I can play what I want to with my hands, but your foot is just that nagging, ongoing frustration driving you crazy that leaves you asking that question that I definitely asked myself at one point of, is the problem my pedal or is the problem my foot? But don't worry, because we're going to solve this today, and I'll even show you how to quickly test how fast or slow your pedal is so that you know where you stand right now as we're getting started. But first I have to caution you. Most drummers reach for pedal adjustment hacks in order to play faster. And these are great, don't get me wrong, because I'm going to teach you 4 of them today. 4 quick hacks, adjustments you can make to your pedal and actually your bass drum as well in order to have a way faster pedal. However, my almost 2 decades of experience playing the drums has taught me that those things will only get you so far. There's a 5th way to make your pedal faster that you might not like so much, but it is absolutely guaranteed to work 100% of the time, no matter your pedal. Don't deal with a sluggish kick pedal any longer that's keeping you from playing the songs you want to play. Let's fix this together today. You can do this. Hey, welcome to the Non-Glamorous Drummer. I'm so glad you're hanging out today. I help self-taught beginner drummers know what to practice so that you can nail songs and sound awesome with a band and be that drummer that other people want to jam with. And hey, while you're here, I want to help you solve your weak hand and build fast, fluid chops around the kit, even if you're constrained to quiet pad practice. We've all been in these situations where we're having to spend a lot of time on the pad, whether it's volume constraints, we're having to practice on the go, whatever it may be. Sometimes it's just more convenient to practice on a pad. However, the big problem with that is that a lot of what we practice on a practice pad doesn't actually carry over to the drum set. However, I've put together for you a 30-minute practice pad routine PDF e-guide. I want you to grab it. It's totally free in the description. That takes the 3 most helpful, practical practice pad exercises that actually do carry over to the full kit and packs them all into this one little e-guide. I lived in an apartment for 2.5 years, and so I was having to do a lot of pad practice, and I found that these 3 things were the most helpful to me, where I could practice through these things, go through this in half an hour, and then I could go to the rehearsal, go to the gig, and I actually felt fresh, I felt warmed up, I felt like I had been playing the drums. And so you'll find that these help you the most as a drum set player, not just, as a pad warm-up. And so be sure to grab the guide. 3 daily pad exercises for fast, fluid hands. It's going to help you out a bunch. My free gift to you. Go grab that in the description. On with today's lesson. So here's our example pedal right here. I told you that I was going to show you a quick test that you could do with your pedal, with any pedal, to immediately see how slow or fast it is. And it's what I call the beater bob test. It's as simple as this. Just pull the beater back as far as it'll go with your hand, with your finger like that, and then let it go. And then see how quickly or slowly it bobs. Now, one quick note, when you have your pedal attached to your bass drum, it's more securely anchored, and so it's going to end up moving a little bit quicker, versus if your pedal's just sitting, naked like this on a snare drum, it's gonna rock a little bit, so it's gonna end up moving more slowly and it's not gonna bob as long. But I find the difference is small enough that we're not gonna worry about it. So, take your pedal, you can keep it on your bass drum down there, but just pull it back with your finger, let it go. And how slow or fast is it? How does it compare to this one right here? So this pedal right here is it's a pretty decent, it's made by a company called Griffin, and it's a really good basic beginner pedal, not expensive. Back when I got this, I think it retailed for like $50. And so super simple pedal, but it's a great backup pedal. It's a really good pedal to have on hand. And it can absolutely be a lot faster than this. I've intentionally adjusted it to be super slow right now, so that as we go through these adjustments, I can show you here are the things you can do to very quickly make your pedal faster. So let's dive in. Number 1, tune your kick drum batter head a little bit higher. I know that kind of sounds like a duh and it has nothing to do with the pedal, but the reason I say this is because most of the time the rule of thumb with tuning a kick drum for rock, at least because that's what most of us are playing, is to essentially finger tighten the batter head. Now, finger tightening is not a reliable way to get a drum head in tune with itself, but that's a topic for another lesson. But the idea is just get it where it's beyond flappy, where we're just starting to hear some tone, like we're just starting to hear a note from the batter head, and then leave it there and don't go any further. Meanwhile, we tune the resonant head up a little bit higher than that, maybe a 4th higher, maybe a 5th higher, so that we get some nice tone from the drum without it just being too high. And so that's the rule of thumb with a rock tuning, which leaves us with a very dead feeling batter head. And so if your pedal isn't working very quickly, that dead feeling batter head is probably not going to help you out at all. So that's why I say that. If you want to tune your batter head a little bit higher, it will definitely give you a quicker response. It's pretty logical, right? If you've got a higher tuned batter head, then that's actually going to kick the beater back a little bit, even if the mechanics of the pedal aren't working for you like they should. However, that's just one small piece of the puzzle. So let's talk about some of the other things. You can absolutely tune up both heads a little bit higher, and don't be afraid to do that because you're not going to lose a bunch of low end. That's the interesting thing. You know, I have this little 20-inch kick drum here, and it has plenty of low end. And I can even tune it high. Like right now, it is pretty low, but I can tune it higher, and there's still a lot of low end and punch and beef. And sometimes you get more of that punch and beefiness as you start to tune higher. So again, topics for another lesson, but I just tell you that to say, don't be afraid to tune your batter head a little higher. It's going to give you a quicker response, and you just might like the sound you end up with even for rock. Okay, way number 2 to make your slow pedal faster, shorten the beater just a ½ inch or so. So right now, if you look at this, you can see I'm using as much length of the beater as I possibly can, a full beater length here. But let's see what happens if I start to shorten it. So again, we're paying attention to, because you're not here in the room with me to feel this pedal out. The best way I can show you how fast or slow it is doing the beater bob test. That's why this is going to be our universal test today. You can see how slow that's going. Bump, 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 and it gradually gets a little slower. Bump, 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 bump. Probably about 110 beats a minute, probably like quarters at 110 if we were to be specific with this. What if we shorten it? What if we go a full inch? What if we shorten it like a full inch? We'll see how much of a difference this makes. That's pretty big. So now we're at bump, 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 bump. That's probably like 130 beats a minute. Like we instantly got 20 more beats per minute of speed there just by shortening it by an inch. And it's still not too short. Like most beaters can go very long, way longer than we actually need them to. And so I think it'd be perfectly acceptable to shorten this beater by an inch to get that extra speed, especially if you're not playing a massive 24-inch kick drum. If you're on a 22-inch drum or a 20-inch, this beater length might be just fine. And so just that little move right there might be all you need, and it might be feeling great. But you don't even need to move it that much. The reason I initially said ½ an inch was because a little really does go a long way. That's probably about a ½ inch, maybe 3/4. Let's try to go exactly a half. ½ inch shorter than we initially had it, and it's still a good bit faster than that super slow motion, kind of lethargic motion that it was doing initially. So play around with that. Don't be afraid to mess with your beater length. That might be all you need to do. And I know if you're a total beginner and haven't messed around with adjusting your pedal, that could be your aha moment of, hey, all I need to do is mess with my beater length, and all of a sudden, my pedal finally feels the way I want it to feel, and I realize that maybe it's not me, maybe it's my pedal. So that's very possible. So don't be afraid to mess with that. All right, way number 3. This is kind of an interesting one. Decrease the weight of the beater or swap it out for a lighter beater. So I realize it's easy for me to say, decrease the weight of your beater. It's easy to add weight to a beater, but just decreasing the weight of it isn't always possible. But it is possible to exchange a beater for something lighter weight. For instance, I've been a big fan of this beater. It's pretty worn out at this point. I've used it so much, so I really need to buy a new one. But this is the Vader Bomber beater. I bought it back when I was starting to play a lot of like chill singer-songwriter stuff, and so it just sounds awesome for kind of that mellow thumpiness on the bass drum. Great for jazz too, and it feels really fast because it's lighter weight. It helps you play softly, and it even helps you play quickly, which is kind of ironic because a lot of times if we're using a soft beater, we don't actually want to play that quickly. But let's see how much of a difference this makes. Adjusting it to about the same length that we had the regular beater, it's a good bit faster. And so you could play around with that too. If you're not trying to play really big, loud rock, and you just want a faster feel from your pedal, try getting a lighter weight beater. Now, here's the other thing that's interesting. So going back to our other beater, a lot of bass drum beaters have a memory lock on them. That's this little thing right here, which we can slide up and down the beater. Now, I actually was not using it as a memory lock. If I was, then I would put it down here. Let's see how fast the pedal is. What's interesting is you can use the memory lock as a weight. You could slide it up and down the beater, and now the beater is going to be a good bit heavier because we've slid it up. Can you tell the difference there? So bum, 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 bum. Remember that tempo. Boom, 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 boom. Here it is now. Boom, 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 boom. A little bit faster. It makes a difference. And if you ever, so the reason why it can be really helpful to have a weight on your beater, and some pedals, some fancier pedals actually have a memory lock and then an independent weight that also moves up and down. The reason why that's so helpful is because if you're playing a smaller kick drum and you want to have your beater shorter, but you still want it to feel heavier, then you could have your weight up here by the actual, the end of the beater, adjust the beater pretty short, but still have a good feel that isn't like super quick and light. Because sometimes you want to have a heavy feel if you're trying to play loud, but maybe the beater needs to be shorter because it's a smaller drum. You can compensate by sliding the weight up. And of course, in this case, we could get crazy. We could start like taping nuts and coins and stuff to this memory lock if we wanted to then make it heavier. Also, you can tape anything you want to the backside of the beater or like right here. So you can get creative with adding weight as well if you're going shorter and you want to compensate. So I realize that's kind of the opposite of what we're talking about today, but just know that that's a possibility that sometimes you want to add weight. But if you're trying to decrease weight, just go for a lighter weight beater. That could be your solution, but honestly, just shortening it is it's definitely a lot quicker, and that might be your way to go. Okay, way number 4 to make your pedal faster, and this one takes a little bit more work, but it could be your solution. Increase the spring tension. So as I told you earlier, I've intentionally made this pedal slow and lethargic so that we can now make it faster. Here's kind of where the beater might end up. We put the memory lock back down here so we don't have the extra weight. We've got kind of the beaters just in a good average position. Here's how fast it's going, which isn't bad. It's still a little bit slow, but it's not bad. But we know just from feeling the spring here that the spring is super loose. There's just not a lot of tension going on here. So let's tighten the spring, increase the spring tension rather. So what you do to do this, most pedals are pretty similar. Turn the nut right here further up and then just press down like that and then start screwing that one down. And so pretty quickly you can get it a good bit tighter. Let's see how much difference that makes. Just feeling it, we can feel there's a big difference there in terms of how tight that spring is. Let's see if we can tell a result here. Whoa. That was huge. So big difference there. Just tightening. So we pulled the screw here down probably by about 1/2 inch. So 1/2 inch more of tension on the spring, which makes a massive difference. So we might even find that's too much. We might be like, okay, a little bit goes a long way. Let's try just doing 1/4 inch. But that could be something huge. You might find that, okay, now let's go back to, remember our original beater length where we had it way out here, super extended. Plus we had the memory lock as a weight way up here. Let's see if we can go back to that. That's not bad. So we could potentially keep our super long beater, heavy beater. We've got the extra little bit of weight from the memory lock. And at this point, all we've changed from square one is the spring tension. And so maybe if you want to have that longer beater, maybe all you need to do is change the spring tension. And so kind of the theme here is that sometimes all you've got to do is mess with one of these adjustment points, and that might be all that you need to do, or you tweak a little bit of everything. But sometimes just one of them is all that you personally need for your beater, for your pedal, for your taste, for the style of music that you're playing, and for the volume that you're playing. And so just know that. You don't have to do all these things. Sometimes just one works. Now, there is a catch. If you tighten the spring tension, and you start to tighten it a lot, that does require a little bit more foot pressure to press the beater down. And what you may find if you're trying to play quietly, like maybe you're trying to play fast, you're trying to get your pedal faster, but you're also playing quietly, what you might find is that the beater's actually slowing down before it hits the head, just because you're having to put a lot of pressure here, but you're not wanting to hit too hard. So sometimes for softer playing, you need to have less spring tension. But if you're doing a lot of louder playing and you want to go loud and fast, you absolutely need that spring tension. That's going to help you out a whole bunch. That's why something, I think it's Jojo Mayer, he's a bass drum technique speed wizard. Something that he teaches is to work on bass drum speed, undo your spring. I think it's Jojo Mayer. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. I think he teaches that. Undo the spring so you have no spring. So it's the equivalent of playing doubles on your leg, where there's no rebound. You're having to make it happen with what your wrists and fingers are doing. And so as a bass drum workout, he recommends undo the spring. That way, all you've got is the rebound from your head. That's where you might want to tune your head up a little bit and work on, doing your doubles that way, which is way more work. So then once you strap the spring down, tighten the spring up, it's like, whoa, I can play so fast. And so just an additional tip there, something that I heard from a student who was going through, I think it was JoJo Mayer's course. Anyways, if I'm wrong, somebody can correct me. But I know one of those guys teaches something like that. And so it's safe to say that the spring has a whole bunch to do with how quick the pedal is. And if you're playing loud and fast, that spring tension is essential. If you're playing soft and fast, you might want to have a little bit less of it, but still enough that you're able to get that quick rebound. And so you can play around with that and find your sweet spot. But based on what we've done so far today, it's safe to say that beater length and spring tension are the two biggest factors, the two things that change the feel of the pedal the fastest. And so that's where a little bit definitely goes a long way. One other note before we move on to the fifth thing, make sure you've got a good angle. So you want your beater to be no closer than 45 degrees. So if this is 45 degrees, at rest, we don't want the pedal to be any closer to the head than that. If at rest it's up here, that's not good. You need to have the 45-degree angle, even a little bit beyond if you're playing loudly. I've found that if you're playing softly, 45 degrees is great. If you're playing loud and fast, having the pedal at rest a little bit beyond 45 like this can be perfect and feel perfect. And so those slight angle adjustments can make a difference too. All right, let's get into way number 5, the one that I warned you might not like, but maybe you can guess at this point where we're going with this. Way number 5 for a faster pedal is have a faster foot. I know that's the one that we don't want to hear because it involves, work, but I've seen this proven time and time again. I'll never forget when I was in high school, showing up to a drum lesson with my first drum set teacher. I would not be where I am today had it not been for the things that he taught me and just the mindset things and the practicing methods that he taught me. And one of them was this. I came into my lesson. I was working on a Jim Chapin Advanced Techniques for the Modern Drummer jazz exercise. It kind of went like, it was sort of like, it was one of those kinds of exercises where you're doing like this slow swing, but the bass drum's going. It's moving fast, and so it's a lot of work for your right foot. So I was working on something like that, and I remember showing up to my lesson, playing on this big, it was a big like Bonham-style kit that we had our lessons on at the church that I grew up at. And there was a DW 5000 pedal on that bass drum, bright red, and I just remember coming into my lesson and trying to play that, and it was just like, just total mess. Like I was like, I could play this at home decently enough. Why can I not play it here at my lesson? And I remember my first thought was blaming the pedal and saying like, it's this DW pedal. I didn't know anything about DW pedals at the time. I didn't know that that was like an industry standard pedal that was awesome. All I knew was something's up here and I'd rather blame the pedal than blame me. And I'll never forget what my teacher told me. He said, go home, practice this exercise incredibly slowly, like slow it down to like 70 beats a minute, 80 beats a minute, which when you're doing jazz swing, it's just painfully slow, but that's what he told me to do. I went home, worked on that for a couple of days, and then within a few days, it was like, okay. And by the next week, exactly a week later, I went into my lesson and night and day difference, same pedal, totally different result. Now here's another funny thing. So I took lessons at the church I grew up at. Years later, I taught some students of my own at that same drum set at the church I grew up at and using that same pedal. And I've sat down at that drum set, at that pedal multiple times, sat there and played and thought, this pedal feels great. I don't think anybody's ever touched it all these years. Nobody's adjusted anything. Nobody's changed anything, but it feels great. And so this whole story proved to me that the problem had nothing to do with the pedal. That pedal was fine. These DW pedals, they ship out of the factory with great settings. You can put a 5000 or a 9000 on your drum set straight out of the box and it's going to play great. If it doesn't, probably your foot is the issue. Yes, there are ways we can optimize, and if you have a cheap pedal, by all means, do those optimization points. Put some oil on your pedal too. Get it moving as fast as you can get it moving. But odds are, at some point, you got to work on your foot, and we have to admit that the problem might be us and that we just need to be better drummers, work on our technique, work on our strength, work on our speed, and that could be your solution. So let me give you 3 tips for doing this that'll hopefully help you out a whole bunch. Tip number 1, and this is super simple, just sit farther back. That way you've got some more space, and you can just be more comfortable on your pedal. Now, I'm speaking from a heel down perspective. I'm tall, I'm 6'4" almost, and I play heel down, therefore I sit at a pretty decent height and I sit really far back. Now, if you're shorter, obviously you don't have to sit super far back like me, but proportionally, ratio-wise, it's all the same. Now, if you're playing heel up, then really what this statement is, instead of sitting farther back to allow for better foot placement, sit higher up to allow for better foot placement. It's possible that if you're trying to play heel up, you might not be sitting as high as you need to. So never be afraid to experiment with throne height. Never get married to the throne height that you currently have. Always be messing with that. In my experience, it's way too easy to sit too close and too low. And so over the years, I've gradually sat higher, gradually sat further back, and I've only gotten more and more comfortable. And the reason why it's important to sit further back or higher up is to make sure you've got a good foot placement. If you're playing heel up, your foot really ought to be like right here. So if you're playing that's where I'd want my foot to be playing heel up. Now, to me, playing heel up feels a little awkward because I'm not sitting high enough. I got to sit super high to go heel up. And that's probably a reason why I've always been more comfortable heel down, because I'm so tall. And so I would rather be heel down. Now, if I'm playing heel down, I still want to have some space between my toes and the chain. I don't want my foot running up here. I want to be down here. And so I can play as loud, fast as I need to, nice and comfortably, as long as I'm sitting far enough back there and I've got that space there between my toes and the chain. Now, what that allows is tip number 2, which is bounce the beater. By having your foot back here if you're playing heel up, or your foot right here if you're playing heel down, that allows you to create motion with your beater. We want to have smooth motion, because if there's not smooth motion, how are we going to play smoothly? It would be like if we were playing around the drum set up here and we're like, how ridiculous is that? Why don't we take that same mindset, that same approach to the bass drum and say, instead of playing like this, which will cause you to press really hard with your foot, run your shoe into the chain, put a lot of stress and pressure on your ankle, calf, shin, knee, upper leg. Like your whole leg is going to be putting more pressure on than it needs to. Even if you're going heel up, same thing ends up happening. If you're going to bury, the best way to do it is to go heel up and put the pressure on this part of your foot. But even there, the sound is inferior. You're still putting a whole bunch of pressure here, and you're less likely to play well and in time because there's not motion. But if you establish motion, remember that the pedal has its own natural tempo and it wants to move smoothly. And when you play quickly, you can't bury the beater. Like, what if we're playing something like this? If we go fast like that, we can't bury the beater. So why would we bury the beater some of the time and not other times? If we're going to play something like, that, we can't bury the beater for those quick 16ths. We can't go. It's impossible. So why don't we be consistent and we choose a technique, choose a sound, and bounce the beater every time? I promise you, you will get better results that way. It might be weird starting out if you're not used to it, but make the switch. In 2019, I made the switch. I was burying the beater most of the time, and actually I was a little bit inconsistent in it for years leading up to that. And then I decided, you know what? I'm tired of my foot sliding up the pedal. I'm tired of my knee hurting at the end of a 4-hour gig. I'm just tired of feeling like my leg is exhausted and worn out. What if I could be much more relaxed and even get a better sound out of the drum by bouncing? And so I just said, all right, I'm never going to bury again. I'm only going to bounce from here on out. And just changed my mindset on that and made myself do it. It felt weird at first. The first gig, the first 4-hour cover gig where I said I'm never going to bury the beater, it was a little bit challenging. But making myself do that at a gig helped so much, because then from then on out, bouncing just became the total default, even if I was playing a big 4 on the floor. And of course, if I'm playing something quick like, then the beater has to bounce. So let's just bounce consistently. Everything got better. My technique was better. My sound was better. My time was better. So many things got better when I started bouncing the beater. I strongly encourage you to do the same. Tip number 3, Tip number 3, here's a practical exercise for you. do the shifting kick exercise. You may have heard me talk about this before if you've watched any of my other, right foot coordination lessons. I'll link the lesson specifically on this below for more in-depth look at this. But essentially what it is, the shifting kick exercise, there's different ways that we can do it, but we basically get a groove going and we just decide we're going to play the kick on different parts of the beat each time. So first we might play on the beats. Then on the E's. One E, two E, and two E. Then the ands. Then the uhs. Then what we can do, so then at that point we cycle back around. So we can do that just with kick singles, but we can also do that with kick doubles. We can start with one E, so beat and then E like this. Then shift it over to E and. And then and. And then a beat. Then we can take that a step further and do groupings of threes. So then we can go 1 E and, 2 E and, 3 E and. Then we can go E and E and E and then and a beat, and a beat, and a beat. Then a beat E, a beat E, a beat E, just like that. It would go like this. Then shift it over. Then start it on the ands. Then start it on the And then back to the beat. So obviously the grouping of three is the most challenging because you've got a whole bunch of notes going on. But what's so cool about that is it's working your chops, it's working your strength down there, it's working your precision, your placement, and your coordination of getting that in time with your hands. And of course, there's a million things you can do with your hands while doing that. We were doing the simple like money beat style version, but you could do different kinds of timekeeping. You could do just singles. Like that. You could do things with the tom. So this is an exercise you can really take and run with. So I encourage you to do that, take action on that. Check out the lesson below with more detail on that, just so you can watch me, hear me play through everything in lots of detail if you want to take that to the practice room, because that will help you out so much as you're working on enhancing your technique, your chops, your strength. But seriously, if you just sit a little further back, so a little higher up, whatever you need to do, get your foot placed where it needs to be, bounce the beater, and then just practice doing some of these strength training exercises that are fun, musical, and apply to grooves and songs, it's going to help you a whole bunch. So hopefully at this point today, you can at least know that your pedal is working for you and not against you. You've messed around with those 4 adjustment points so that it's feeling better. Maybe you've even tuned up your bass drum, really 3 kick drum pedal adjustment points, 1 bass drum adjustment point. Hopefully you're also able to develop a faster foot simply by adjusting how you sit, changing how you sit, and how you're approaching it. That might be all that you need. And so my hope is that you're able to now begin playing at the tempos you've dreamed of playing at and those songs that you've always wanted to play, because you've now got the pedal working for you, you've now got the skills to pull it off. So I hope this has been helpful to you. I hope this has been valuable to you. Be sure to grab the free gift for you in the description below, the 3 daily pad exercises for fast, fluid hands. That'll help you out a whole bunch. If you're not always able to get on the kit and work on your feet, for instance, at least you can do some stuff with your hands on the pad that will carry over to the kit and be working your brain too. That's an important part of drumming, as we know. So be sure to go grab that as you go. Question for you: which of these tips is for you? Which one jumped out at you? Was it the beater length? Was it the spring tension? Or was it the adjusting how you sit so you can change where your foot's placed so that you can get a better sound down here, better motion, and ultimately increase your foot's ability? Maybe if you're like me, back when I was in high school and was going to those drum lessons and realizing, you know what, at this point, it doesn't matter how well the pedal is adjusted, I've got to increase my skill or else I'm constantly going to be stuck. That could be where you're at. And so if that's you, be patient. Know that you can do it. It's going to take some time and some practice and some effort, but by practicing stuff very slowly, you can get there more quickly. That's what I did. In that week of practicing, going very, 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 very slow, I was more quickly able to then go fast and play what I wanted to play, rather than constantly running into a tempo ceiling where it's kind of like beating your head against the wall and getting nowhere. And so practice patiently, slow things down, and just work at it methodically. Enjoy the process. Enjoy that you are growing a little bit every day, even if it's just 1% every day. As James Clear talks about in his book, Atomic Habits, if you can have a 1% improvement every day or every week, whatever, that really compounds, right? And you get way better at something over time. And you might not notice day to day, week to week, but after a whole year of this, man, you'll be amazed at what your foot can do. So stick with it, be patient, stay non-glamorous, know that you can do this. I'll see you on the next lesson. You can do this.